They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. It's 'cause you are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains, bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph or Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh, that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren, say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell them I contracted rabies from a feral mic. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. See, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, and tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark because you aren't, because we aren't. You see, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and make you build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, where they'll tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark because you aren't, because we aren't. My lips, brand new taxes, starving all the billionaires and neutering their Visa Maxes. Topple Congress off their axis, mobilize the homeless, give them axes, call it praxis. Chop a couple limbs off the legislative branches. We'll show you the difference between air as a human right and guaranteed oxygen access. Octogenarians who barely know what day it is are culling countless citizens while sitting on a dais made of ignorance that was built on the graves of the slaves made to labor for its self-declared significance. And all to build a Congress full of millionaires who make their fortunes insider trading while they shit on all the indigent. So I got a bone to pick with our leaders, and I'll start with the ligaments. Pick right through the muscle, dig the marrow out, and serve it to the unhoused millions living in their minivans or watching their belongings get evicted from their tenement. I have a dream where we breach the walls of Congress and just let them in. And what happens next will survive in only text, cause there won't be any evidence. There will only be that heavy kind of feeling that pervades a space where there has been a reckoning and you can feel its remnants. Let any man who enters seeking power know that those who came before him suffocated on their eminence. That there once was a seal on the wall, but we quartered it and scattered all the pieces that it might prevent its semblance. And so we end the great experiment. We'll take all your billions, leave you 2 coins for the ferryman. Leave you drifting on a Dutchman floating derelict among the wretched seraphim. For holy is the hand that wiped the land clean of those who pose as gentlemen. That's my time, honey, cue the thunderclap and strike the theremin. And so we end the great experiment. You don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in their rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. 2 windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in 2. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue, a state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? What's up, everyone? It is Tuesday night. We're back again, just like we are every night, every Tuesday night, 10 Eastern. We've been like this now for, 7, 8, 9 months, actually. We'd have had a baby at this point, I'm guessing, because November 11th, 25 was our first show as Indie News Now Live. And we basically have gone every Tuesday. I think I missed one since then. So so here we are about 9 months later, and we're here for another Indie News Now Live. I don't know if you caught what the title was, but we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff tonight. As usual, we're going to do a long Fuck Israel segment. It's not going to be that long, but we are going to talk about Messi. And since the World Cup's over, Alan McLeod, our Indie Media Award honoree, friend of the show, wrote an amazing article about Messi and his ties to Israel, IDF, Unit 8200, and how he's been groomed this whole time. There's been a lot of stuff written about that. And yes, I agree, Angel, that Messi is far from the only athlete that's connected to Israel. Number of superstar NBA players. I know you've covered some of that on your show, on Angel and Friends. I know also that Reef and Colin have covered some of that on INN News. And actually, Alan McLeod at Min Press News is the one that's written a lot of the articles that talk about Steph Curry and LeBron James and other NBA players that have deep links. Even Jalen Brunson has apparently some links to Israel, now guy from the Knicks. We're also going to, last week, no, you almost missed the show. Nope, you can't. I don't know why you can't get used to Tuesdays, brother. We've been doing this 9 months now, every Tuesday night. But anyway, last week I brought a lightning round article and showed you the headline, but I actually wanted to read it. And as it turns out, I didn't even realize, but it's a part 2 article, and Reef and Colin read part 1 on INN News a couple weeks ago from BetBeat Media. So I'm going to read that. We're going to do the Fuck Israel segment. Then we're going to get to Polymarket, and we're going to hopefully finish the Whitney Webb article about Polymarket. Last 2 weeks, I've read about an hour each. There should be about 20 to 40 minutes left of time for me to bang the rest of that out, and we can finish up on the Polymarket article and analyze everything that thing tells us just in time for her to finally publish part 2 of her Polymarket story. And then we're going to have a lightning round. And this one's going to be interesting because there's some vindication in there. There's ICE murdering people. I think that's not a surprise. One that slid past people, and it's not really a surprise, but a Google employee resigned over the Pentagon AI deal. And then there's actually some help and suggestive, positive solutions in tonight's show at the end, where we're going to talk about how we can beat big tech. And there's a website that everyone can go to help themselves with privacy and to shield themselves as much as possible from the surveillance state grid that's coming in here already. But before we do all of that, if you're able to and a means, please support independent media with a tip to the network. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. You can do it on Super Chat, but YouTube gets 30% that way. I would prefer that you do it in one of those places. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Now I forgot to turn on Substack. We're going to do that now. All right. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. We got IndieNewsNow.com. It's the name of the show because it's actually a website that we created that aggregates news 24/7. And then INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com, where we should be starting to stream live right now over on Substack. So what's going on to my friend Old Man Barker? I see him here saying what's up over in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to read this BetBeat Media article, and it's an overview, a what if scenario underneath this new control grid of exactly just how insane this can get. And this is just one potential. So I think I used part of this image in the thumbnail last week. This was the full image that BetBeat had put out, all right, where you've got some kind of a drone identifying a target, and it's giving a profile, and what are the vulnerabilities? Likes threesomes, and who doesn't? Cheats on his wife. Well, that's something they certainly can use to squeeze you. And this is like the Godzification almost. You see, it's like a dystopian wasteland back alley he's been chased into. It appears this thing, I'm sure, would be armed with weaponry also. So let's get into the BetBeat article. And by the way, this is now paywalled over at BetBeat. I actually became an annual paid member on behalf of INN this today because they've been doing such amazing work for so long. I almost felt like it's kind of overdue. So we are now paid subs so we can read this article. And I reached out to Kareem and let him know that I was going to be reading this. He's like, let me know when you do. So hopefully he shares it. Hello to all the BetBeat to all the BetBeat audience. Thank you for supporting independent media. Kareem's awesome. Okay, so he says that we fully understand that not everyone can be a paid sub, but you can support by restacking their work, which I highly encourage everyone to do. So this story is called The Digital Assassin. Imagine a machine. One prompt is all it takes, your name. Within an hour, it hands back your life, reassembled. Every word you've ever typed, spoken near a microphone, or whispered into a search bar. Under your real name, under every alias, on every forum you thought was anonymous. Every private message you assumed was deleted. Every porn site you'd visited at 2 a.m. and the specific fetish categories you clicked, for those who did. Every political rant on a burner Twitter account in 2013. Every therapist you searched for. Every joke that would end your career screenshotted without context. Every doubt that about your marriage typed into a Reddit thread that you forgot existed. Every version of yourself you thought was safely buried, handed to a stranger in an afternoon. This isn't a thought experiment. This machine already exists. It arrived quietly. The only thing you don't know is whether your name has been on the prompt yet. He says, a note before we begin, part one of this series, he explored AI pre-crime, the seductive, terrifying logic of a state that punishes what you might do based on what an algorithm predicts you are. If you haven't read that, do that first. Okay. Today, we return to the dark realm of AI in the hands of power. Now, you don't just have to read that. Again, you can go to youtube.com/IndieNewsNetwork and search INN News. And there is a segment from last week where Reef actually reads the part one, the pre-crime. So here's the conversation we refuse to have. Every serious discussion of AI danger orbits the same three planets. Planet one is superintelligence. A god mind wakes up in a data center and decides humans are inconvenient. The singularity, Skynet. Then we have planet two, the AI race. China, Russia, and the United States sprint towards some unspecified finish line, and whoever gets there first inherits the earth. Every op-ed is a variation of the same anxious refrain, we must not lose. And then you've got planet three, rogue AI, which is where we kind of are now. The model has escaped its lab. It copies itself onto the internet and begins doing something. The details are always vague. The mood is always apocalyptic. These conversations serve a specific function. They make AI danger feel abstract, distant, impersonal. They turn the threat into a science fiction problem, something for OpenAI safety teams and Oxford philosophers to sort out over espresso. But here's the danger nobody wants to name. The most likely catastrophe is not a rogue AI. It's a perfectly obedient AI pointed at you by a human who hates you. The threat is not that AI will develop a will of its own. The threat is that it will faithfully execute someone else's. And in a world where the someone else increasingly resembles Trump, Netanyahu, and whichever man of similar temperament is next in line, that obedience is the entire problem. Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Kent, any Democrat in office that wants to do anything to Russia, for Ukraine, to attack China, it's dangerous. Privatized capitalism has spent 40 years quietly transferring civilization's most powerful tools into the hands of a shrinking cast of individuals. World Economic Forum. Many of them, if we are being honest, exhibit textbook traits of grandiose narcissism, cruelty toward the vulnerable, and complete indifference to democratic norms. Now, we're handing these same individuals a lever that can move every camera, every phone, every drone, every police database, every piece of software you've ever touched. One prompt, that's all it'll take. So, here's one scenario. There seems to be some unrest over there. Handle it. Imagine a mid-sized American city, call it Millvale. 20,000 people gather in the town square to protest something, an ICE deportation, a war, a stolen election. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that a president sitting in a room 1,000 miles away doesn't like it. He turns to a screen. He types a prompt. Perhaps he speaks it aloud. There seems to be some unrest in Millvale. Get rid of it. Here's what happens in the next 90 seconds. Seconds 1 through 5, the AI model connected to every satellite feed, every camera, every Ring doorbell, every convenience store CCTV within a 50-mile radius pulls a live composite of the square. It's been ingesting this feed for years. It knows the baseline. It knows what a normal Tuesday looks like in Millvale. It knows what unrest looks like too, because it's watched Ferguson and Portland, Hong Kong and Tehran and Gaza on an infinite loop. Seconds 5 to 15, facial recognition identifies every person in the crowd, not most, every one. Their names, addresses, employers, credit scores, medical conditions, immigration status, custody arrangements, prescription histories, dating profiles. I don't know why they would need to know that. Browser histories, and the names of their children's schools all load into a single dashboard run by Palantir. The AI ranks them by influence. Who's live streaming? Who's organizing? Well, who other protesters look at when deciding what to do next? That's 10 seconds. Now, seconds 15 to 30, the top 200 influencers receive personalized text messages, not from a government number, from their mother, from their spouse, from their child's principal. The AI has cloned the voices and writing styles from years of intercepted communications. Please come home, something happened. Your daughter's school is in lockdown. I know what you did in 2019. Some of the messages are true threats. Some are lies. Some are just accurate enough to cause a panic attack. All of them arrive at once. Now, over the next 30 seconds, seconds 30 through 60, the remaining crowd shrinks. The AI now directs local police in real time, not through a chief, not through a captain, but through the earpiece of each individual officer. AI voice, this Officer Reyes, the man in the red jacket to your left has an outstanding warrant. Approach from behind. AI voice, Officer Chen, the woman filming you is a journalist. Do not engage on camera. Wait 3 meters. There's no chain of command anymore. There's only the president's prompt. Now we have the final 30 seconds, seconds 60 through 90. Overhead, the drones arrive, not military drones. Those would require an executive order, a congressional nullification, a paper trail. These are small, cheap, autonomous, AI-controlled quadcopters procured through a Palantir subsidiary under a defense support contract nobody read. There are, let us say, 100,000 of them nationwide, sitting in warehouses in every state. They don't need pilots. They need a prompt. They have one. They lift into the sky like a swarm of hornets and move toward Millvale. By the 2-minute mark, Millvale is quiet. By the 5-minute mark, the story on the cable news is that a chemical leak prompted an orderly evacuation, and the AI has already generated the video to prove it. By nightfall, 17 influencers have been detained on unrelated charges the AI surfaced from a decade of digital exhaust. 3 will die of what the coroner records as heart attacks. 2 more will disappear from the record entirely. Their social media accounts will be scrubbed, their bank accounts frozen, their names quietly removed from voter rolls. The president never left his chair. But, sir, this is science fiction. Is it? The Pentagon has already raised the ceiling on Palantir's Maven Smart System contract by $795 million, pushing it toward $1.3 billion through 2029. More than 70,000 active Maven users now work across more than 35 military service and combatant command software tools. That user base has more than doubled since January. The Army has awarded Palantir up to $10 billion over 10 years under a new type of contract vehicle called an Enterprise Service Agreement, or an ESA, consolidating 75 contracts into one. Normally, they would call this a Master Services Agreement, but they're calling it an Enterprise one here. These are not conspiracy theories from an anonymous Substack. These are Department of Defense press releases. On the domestic side, Immigration and Customs Enforcement records show Palantir received a $30 million contract to build a platform to track migrant movements in real time. Recent reporting indicates Palantir is being tapped to build a master immigration database to speed up deportations. Not to speed up checking on the people who are here legally or to ensure that, but to speed up deportations. It's so dystopian. The Silicon Valley investor Paul Graham has publicly accused Palantir of building the infrastructure of the police state. 10 years ago, that phrase would have gotten him laughed off a stage. Today, it gets him agreement. The surveillance layer is only half the equation. The other half is the ability of AI to reach into any individual's digital life and extract everything. And that half arrived in April. Enter the AI super hacker. Anthropic. Anthropic didn't set out to build a weapon. They set out to build a helpful assistant, a machine that answers questions and writes emails. What they built and quietly handed over to a small group of industry partners in April is the greatest hacker who's ever lived. They call it Claude Mythos Preview. Give it one sentence in plain English typed by one person, and it will hunt down the hidden ways into the software that the world runs on. Your phone, your laptop, your bank, your hospital's records, the car in your driveway, every program you've trusted for 20 years to keep your life private and safe. They were never safe. We just didn't know. Jesse Jet. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? No. Anthropic's own security team turned the machine loose to see what it could do. It found thousands of hidden ways into our software programs. One of them had been sitting inside the software that runs banks and hospitals for 27 years. Nobody had ever found it. Not the engineers who wrote the code. Not the security firms that paid millions to hunt for this exact kind of flaw. Not the criminals who spent decades trying to break in. The machine found it in an afternoon. In another program, the kind of invisible plumbing that quietly runs half the internet, it found a way in. For 17 years, every expert in the world had believed that the program was safe. It wasn't. The machine walked in and then, without being asked, built the tool to take control of everything from the other side. No password, no alarm, no human hand on a keyboard after the first instruction was typed. That's Skynet. Again, read that sentence again. No human hand on a keyboard after the first instruction was typed. It was all done by the machines. Now imagine the same capability. Instead of being aimed at critical software to protect it, it's aimed at you. Find me everything on this activist. The prompt runs. Within hours, the model has enumerated every email address you've ever used, including the burner accounts you thought were untraceable. They've cross-referenced them against every database in existence to recover your old passwords. They use those passwords or fresh exploits to enter dormant accounts you forgot about a decade ago. They rebuilt your social graph from Facebook photos and LinkedIn connections, Venmo transactions, and Strava routes. Strava. They identified every IP address you've ever posted from and every device connected to those IPs, including the ones belonging to your friends, your lovers, your estranged family. Reassembled every word you've ever typed, spoken near a microphone, whispered into a search bar, under your real name, under every alias, on every form you thought was anonymous. I read the rest of that earlier. Every symptom that you Googled, every ex that you stalked, for those who've done that. Every joke that would end your career is screenshotted without context. Every doubt about your marriage typed into a Reddit thread that you forgot existed. The AI doesn't judge these things, it sorts them by humiliation potential, by career-ending potential, by marriage-ending potential, by prosecutable potential. It assembles the top 10 into a single PDF, a dossier, a kill file. One document sitting on a server that can end your job, your relationships, your custody arrangement, your standing in your community, and your will to keep speaking all in a single afternoon, or an hour, or 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be released. The threat of release sometimes is enough and is a weapon. And the AI has already drafted the email that delivers it. All of that on a single prompt at a compute cost of a few $1,000s. The responsible players wielding this power. The people building these tools will tell you, with the practiced sincerity of a TED Talk, that they built them to defend. Anthropic didn't release Mythos to the public. They released it quietly and under tight contract to a handful of trusted giants: Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. The logic sounds reasonable on the surface. These are companies whose operating systems, browsers, and cloud services run practically every device on Earth. Give them the most powerful vulnerability hunting AI ever built. Let them turn it inward, point it at their own code, their own kernels, their own browsers. Let them fix the security holes first, patch them, and then ship the fix to your phone before a hostile actor ever discovers the same flaw exists. Except they want those flaws, and that's what he's going to say. That's the pitch. Defensive asymmetry. A head start in an arms race. The quote-unquote good guys get the super weapon. They use it to bulletproof the software the world runs on. And by the time anyone else builds a comparable AI, every exploitable door has already been welded shut. You're supposed to feel comforted by that. But let me ask you something else. Do you actually trust the people running these companies? Not the researchers. I have no quarrel with the 20-something PhDs writing the safety papers. Some of them are genuinely heroic. I mean men at the top. The billionaires, the board members, the class of tech executives whose names keep surfacing year after year in Epstein flight logs, in client lists, in leaked emails, in quiet legal settlements, in philanthropic donations to men whose crimes were an open secret in every boardroom in Palo Alto. These are the people we're being asked to trust with the master key to civilization. Look at the track record. These are the men who spent a decade telling us social media would connect the world, while their own internal research, later linked, proved they knew in real time they were driving teenage girls towards self-harm and kept shipping the product anyway. These are men who swore they would never build weapons right up until the Pentagon opened its checkbook, at which point Google's "Don't Be Evil" motto quietly vanished from its code of conduct, and every major AI lab in the country began signing defense contracts they'd spent years publicly denouncing. I'm going to talk about a guy who resigned from Google's DeepMind specifically for that reason later on tonight. These are the men who promised open source, then closed it, who promised safety teams, then fired them the quarter after the product shipped, who promised they would never work with authoritarian regimes, then built censored and biased search engines for Israel and facial recognition pipelines for ICE. And I'm guessing they did some things for China too along the way, but we'll see. Every ethical line these companies have ever drawn has been erased the moment it became inconvenient. Every "we would never" has become "we already did," and here's the press release explaining why it's actually good. Every safety commitment has a shelf life measured in fiscal quarters. That's poetic. That's a great quotable line. These are the people you want deciding who gets to hold Mythos next? Make no mistake. The "we only gave it to Apple and Microsoft" phrase is temporary. It always is. In 18 months, there'll be an enterprise tier. In 36 months, there'll be a government tier. It might be reversed. In 60 months, a friendly foreign intelligence service will have it. And the year after that, an unfriendly one will have stolen it. This is the invariable trajectory of every powerful technology these men have ever built. Pretending this one's going to be different isn't optimism. It's amnesia. So no, I do not trust the good faith of the men who own these labs. I've watched them for 20 years betray every principle they ever claimed to hold the moment the number on the contract got large enough. As Ted DiBiase, the $1 million man in WWE, used to say, everybody's got a price, baby. The researchers may mean well. The men who sign their paychecks have told us over and over exactly who they are. It's well past time we believed them, as Maya Angelou famously told us. Here's the thing about tools. Once the capability exists, the question is no longer whether it will be used against dissidents. The question is when and by whom. And there's always a whom. There's always someone in a chair with a prompt deciding who counts as unrest. Is that going to be Stephen Miller? Is that going to be Pete Hegseth? Is that going to be Todd Blanche? Is that going to be Mark Wayne Mullen? I'm guessing it's going to be all four. On top of that, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel. I mean, you name it. Capitalism does not reward the wise or the kind or the restrained. It rewards the predator. It has always rewarded the predator. And now, for the first time in human history, the predator has a machine that can silence a city on a single sentence typed into a box. And now we get to the psychopath problem. We don't like to talk about this, but we should. A functioning democracy depends on the assumption that even bad leaders are constrained by law, by bureaucracy, by the slowness of human institutions, by the moral institution of the thousands of people whose cooperation is required to do something monstrous. When a leader gives an evil order historically, at least some of the humans in the chain have said no. Some have leaked. Some have resigned. Some have simply worked slowly and hoped that the moment would pass. AI removes every one of those humans from the chain. The AI doesn't resign. It doesn't leak to the Washington Post. It doesn't develop a conscience over lunch. It doesn't slow walk the order. It doesn't call its senator. It doesn't weep when it identifies the target's children. It executes. This matters right now because we're living through a global moment in which an unusual number of world leaders exhibit, to put it as diplomatically as he can, a striking indifference to human suffering when that suffering is politically useful to them. Kareem doesn't think that it's controversial in an opinion column to say that a prime minister currently under an ICC arrest warrant for alleged crimes against humanity in Gaza, or a president who's openly mused about turning the military against American cities and an enemy within, or nuking Iran, are not the people to whom we should be handing a single prompt kill switch on civil society. But that's exactly what we're building. And the terrifying part is not that these particular individuals are uniquely evil. It's that our system has been selecting them for a generation. Privatized capitalism, deregulated media, algorithmic politics, and dark money have created a leadership pipeline that rewards exactly the traits that makes a person most dangerous with a superintelligent obedience machine in his hand. Grandiosity, cruelty, pedophilia, indifference to law, a bottomless appetite for loyalty, gluttonous, and greed. We used to say that power corrupts. Now we need to even extend that saying. Power no longer merely corrupts the few who wield it. Power becomes inescapable to those of us who want to keep our distance. It reaches down through every institution, every household, every camera, every internet connection, every phone. And it doesn't stop at the door of your bedroom. There's no longer a far away from power. There is no forest to disappear into. There is no analog corner of your life the model cannot enter. And so power no longer corrupts only the powerful. It corrupts everyone it touches. And now it touches all of us. So now we get to the AI that stalks you everywhere you go. The AI will be the psychopath's digital assassin. Tireless, sleepless, everywhere, all at once. You cannot flee to the countryside. The satellite is already overhead, and the cell tower on the hill knows your gait. You cannot vanish into the deep woods. The AI drones are the size of dragonflies now. They track you everywhere you go. You can't pay in cash. The camera above the register knew your face before your hand left your pocket. You can't hide in a crowd. The crowd is being sorted in real time, and your name is already at the top of a list you'll never be shown. You can't go to the people who love you. Their phones are listening for you, and the model has already read every letter you ever sent them. There is no isolated forest. There is no border crossing to freedom. There is no cabin at the end of a dirt road where no one can find you. There is no alias the system hasn't already linked to your face. No thought that you haven't already been predicted to think. Getting back again to Reef's last article. Again, somebody hiding in the woods, they've already profiled them. So what's to be done? I want to be honest with you, I don't have a tidy list of solutions. Anyone who does is lying or selling something. I know what the first step is, and it's the reason that he's writing this series. We have to break the frame. As long as AI danger is discussed only in the language of superintelligence, arms races, and rogue systems, the men building the surveillance and targeting stack get a free pass. They get to nod along at Davos about existential risk while quietly signing the contract that puts 100,000 autonomous drones under a single prompt. They get to fund university institutes on AI alignment while their engineers write the code that decides which protester to text first. The real alignment problem isn't between AI and humanity. It's between AI and whoever holds the prompt. And right now, the people holding the prompt are disproportionately the least trustworthy human beings our civilization has ever produced. Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Jack Dorsey. Stop asking whether the AI will turn against us and start realizing that it's already pointed at you, at me, and at all of us. So again, that's from our brothers over at Bedbeat Media. Kareem wrote that one out. Appreciate them. Support independent media, support BetBeat. You can subscribe monthly there. It's $80 a year, $8 a month. We understand that not everyone can afford that or has the money laying around. So if not, you can definitely do the share thing. Click to restack it, like it, and show other people who look at that, add to that number. Leave a comment letting them know how good the article is. Okay, and if you have a Substack, there's this little handy thing. Oh, I guess it's not here because it's not public. You can actually cross-post posts to your own Substack if you have one, which goes out to your email database and publishes a copy with a little note that you write above it out to your database. And then it shares this article. So this is a really good piece. It's scary as hell. And that is here. And, you know, all the anonymous accounts that I have, for example, scares the crap out of me, really. Honestly, yeah, everyone arrested, every one of them admit that they expect to be arrested for their criminal depravity. Totally agree, Mary. All right. And they're destroying constitutional republics. That's not building. Agreed. And they're doing it again on the money that's being on the funding of the U.S. government. It's still the Defense Department because technically Congress did not change the name and authorize the name change. So while they want to call it the Department of War, officially, according to, the CBO, it's still the Department of Defense, even though we know it's only really to commit war. AI is cancer. I agree. All right. Whoever wrote Vicky, good to see you. Hope everyone is doing well. All right. Ghost Start, good to see you. So share, we're live on Rumble. We're live on Substack. We're live on Kick. Believe it or not, kick.com/IndieNewsNetwork. We're live at INNnewsletter.com. I'm sorry, we're not live there. We're live at IndieMediaToday.com over on Substack. And we're live over on IndieNewsNow.com, like the name of the show. So support independent media because we need it more than ever. You know how to do it. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. Code-fee.com/Indie News Network will pop something up on screen. Fred Edward does that. Kieran Pine's done that. Charlie Mack does that. A lot of people. Everyone up there actually has done something like that. Patreon.com/Indie News Network is a monthly subscription PayPal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. You can do a one-time as friends and family. And you can leave a tip over at IndieNewsNow.com or pick up merch. And I'll talk about merch later also. Okay. We are going to do the Fuck Israel segment. Yay. Well, not yay, because... All right. Yeah. Sorry, Joe. I hate to depress you to the point that you're going to cry yourself to sleep. If you want to hear about Messi and his links to Israel and Unit 8200, just hang out for a little bit because I'm going to talk about that and some other things. So, you know what? Before we do, I realized that my bookmark bar was there, and I don't like showing that because let's give a little bit more space. Okay. Here we go. Now. First story is an Alan McLeod article talking about Messi and talking about how Messi's got multiple different links to Israel. But that's only one part of the story. All right. Then we're going to talk about crocodiles. And I have to give Steve credit over at AM Wake Up. He came up with a phrase that killed me. It broke me when I heard it because it's fucking clever as hell. Croc-upied. And you'll get that later. All right, that the bombers are back in the air, and of course that we're targeting civilian infrastructure. And I also brought another video that I think people are gonna need to listen to. So now we get to this mid-press article about Messi's ties to Netanyahu, the Israeli military, and its elite spying unit 8200. Now we talked last week about Unit 8200 and how one of their alumni is now running PragerU and pushing propaganda for the school agenda across the United States. Here in another way, we've got more where Israel is influencing. So the world's eyes will be on Lionel Messi this was Wednesday night last week. He actually wrote this last Tuesday, but they were on him Wednesday when Argentina won, and then on Sunday when they lost the World Cup final. All right, the diminutive superstar has gained a massive following across the planet, not least in Israel, thanks to his numerous business and security connections with the apartheid state. Yeah. From being the face of an Israeli AI company led and run by Israeli spies, entrusting his private security team to a team of Israeli secret agents, Mint Press explores the reasons why Benjamin Netanyahu considers him to be his favorite football player. So first we get palling up with the ex-Israeli spooks. Now, let's see what I did read about this elsewhere. I want to see what Alan has to say versus what I saw elsewhere. As the world's foremost football star, one of them, Lionel Messi is understandably protective of his image. The Argentinian forward carefully picks and chooses whom he's associated with and has signed lucrative, long-term deals with enormous global brands such as Adidas, Pepsi, and MasterCard. That's why many were surprised when in 2020 he announced a partnership with Orcam, a relatively small Israeli AI firm that makes wearable artificial vision devices similar to Google Glass. Orcam markets itself as helping visually impaired people live more fulfilling lives. Messi became its global brand ambassador and the face of the company. Okay. More controversially, however, Orcam is an outgrowth of the Israeli National Security State, employing dozens of former agents of Israeli military spying agency Unit 8200, many in highly influential positions. Chief among these is Adi Levitsky, a longtime intelligence officer with Unit 8200, who in 2024 was appointed Director of Operations at Orcam. Many of Orcam's staff were commanders in the shadowy spy agency, responsible for some of the worst crimes of the post-October 7th, 2023 war massacre, as well as many of the scandalous international hacking and surveillance operations. Moore Shami, for example, rose to become head of an intelligence analysis at Unit 8200 by 2015, and would later be hired as an algorithm developer at Orcam. Working alongside him was Matan Albeck, former head of Unit 8200's Data Analysis Department. Despite major layoffs in recent years, the company continues to be staffed largely by former spooks, with a revolving door existing between the two entities. Some, such as Elia Segev and Eli Korn, went from Orcam into Unit 8200, while Amitai Edre's resume showed that he worked for both Orcam and Unit 8200 at the same time, underscoring the close relationship between the two. My guess is that, similar to the way that NSA would put agents out on loan, like Edward Snowden was on loan to the agency, to the company, the private organization that he was with when he got caught, or when he leaked and ran, they moonlight. They work for multiple organizations. For Messi, this should have been a major red flag in working with Orcam, as Unit 8200 is the prime designer and operator of Israel's high-tech genocide in Gaza and beyond. And its agents are responsible for producing much of the world's most invasive spyware, as we've talked about many times. Using big data collected by its massive Palestinian dragnet, the organization created massive AI-generated kill lists of Palestinians in Gaza and carried out tens of thousands of drone bombing operations that was the centerpiece of the destruction in Gaza. This is Orcam? I thought they just made headsets for the blind. Its agents also developed a highly invasive spyware, such as Pegasus, which was used to spy on tens of thousands of foreign leaders, journalists, activists, and human rights advocates around the world, including Jimmy Dore, who admitted that it was installed at the UN on his phone. He told that to Whitney Webb. The Israeli government sold Pegasus to dictatorships and authoritarian regimes globally, helping them crack down on human rights. Now, remember when I just read that story from Kareem at BetBeat, where there's a life cycle on all softwares like that Anthropic software, Claude Maven, all right, that eventually it ends up being sold to authoritarian regimes globally? There you go. Perhaps the most well-known case of this was Saudi Arabia, who used Pegasus to monitor WAPO journalist Jamal Khashoggi before dismembering him with a bone saw in their embassy in Turkey. But they also used it to spy on Merkel. They admitted they used it to spy on every world leader. It's therefore highly questionable that Messi should decide to become the face of such a company. But then we get to why. His handlers. The Argentinian has made multiple visits to Israel during his career. In 2013, he and his club FC Barcelona went to Israel and Palestine on a supposed peace tour. During his trip, he met and talked with Netanyahu and then President Shimon Peres, and glad-handed with IDF soldiers. He also donned a yarmulke and visited the Western Wall, and then kissed it like all the other politicians. They're bending the knee, the holiest site in Judaism. Full disclosure, I personally have also visited that wall once in my life. Even after leaving, however, Messi takes a small part of Israel with him everywhere he goes. His security is handled by an elite force of former Israeli agents who plan his every move, especially internationally. He takes his security very seriously, even missing his sister-in-law's wedding in Argentina due to safety concerns. So again, investing in a Unit 8200 run company due to who his security is isn't all that surprising. Now, these same Israeli forces that were in charge of his security at his own 2017 wedding, ESPN reports, although it did not detail whether those agents are from Mossad, Shin Bet, or an elite commando group, as if it really matters. Messi, who avoids political controversies, has not made any statements on Israel-Palestine since October 7, 2023, despite many false stories suggesting otherwise. The Inter Miami forward left an impression on Netanyahu when the pair met in 2013. Again, photo of that interaction here in the top left corner. In a recent interview, Netanyahu revealed that he's supporting Argentina at this year's World Cup. He's 39 years old now. They are lucky to have such an experienced player who knows how to score goals. The Israeli public clearly agree. A recent poll found that 38% of Israel are actively supporting Argentina at the tournament. What a shock. Well ahead of second place Brazil. Yoav Berkowitz, head of sports at Israeli public broadcaster Khan, stated that this was due in no small part to the Messi effect. So he considers his brothers to be Zionists, or Zionists to be his brothers. Others, including Netanyahu himself, cite Argentinian President Javier Milei as another factor. Since coming to power in 2023, thanks to the help of libertarians in America, Milei has made support for Israel a central pillar of his political platform. Internationally, Israel has few friends left, but Milei's Argentina has emerged as among its most vocal backers. In May of 2024, it voted against an overwhelmingly popular UN vote to elect Palestine as a full member of the body. 4 months later, it did the same with a resolution demanding an end to the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. They are openly and blatantly and flagrantly Zionist. His government also declared Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Quds forces terrorist organizations and cheered on the U.S.-Israel attack on Iran. Milei himself calling it the right thing to do. By the way, Argentina's peso has completely collapsed. Argentina also stated that it would move its Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, thereby effectively legitimizing the occupation. The move was paused, however, after Israeli oil firm Navitas announced it would begin drilling near the Falklands and Malvinas, a group of islands controlled by the United Kingdom but claimed by Argentina. On a personal level, Milei has distanced himself from Catholicism, the dominant religion in Argentina, and all but declared himself a Jewish convert. He also is secretly or historically cousins with Netanyahu. Earlier this year, he described himself as the most Zionist president in the world. Well, second most, at least. Or third, because Netanyahu or whoever's the president of Israel, that's Israel Katz. Trump is certainly a Zionist president. And this guy. I would also count Bukele and half of the South American leadership. Netanyahu said, Milei is a great friend of Israel. He's a superstar. He really is. He's done amazing things with their economy by adopting the free market. Yeah, he's done amazing things to drive their peso literally to worthlessness. So how Israel helped Argentina massacre its Jewish population? What? Since October 7th, 2023, when there was a prison break as a result of 75 years of occupation that Israel had done on the Palestinian people, Israel has lost massive amounts of public support across the world for retaliating in a open-air prison that has no chance to defend itself, even in Western nations. A 2025 YouGov survey found that more than 20 times as many Italians, for instance, hold very unfavorable views of Israel rather than very favorable ones. Only 2% of Italians hold very favorable views of Israel. Even in Germany, where popular support for Israel is at its highest, only 21% said they hold favorable opinions of the state, including 4% highly favorable, with 65% displaying open opposition. including 32% who strongly dislike it, which is why the government is cracking down on that 65%. They're part of the top 43 or even part of the 2%. They want to make sure that I don't know what Germany's up to, but I know that they have ramped up the authoritarianism in support of Israel's war crimes and genocide. And we've reported on that extensively here. It's widely claimed that October 7th was the largest slaughter of Jewish people since the Holocaust. This, however, is not the case. In fact, the fascist military dictatorship that ruled Argentina in the 70s and 80s relentlessly persecuted Jews, killing or disappearing thousands. Taking inspiration from Hitler and the Nazis, who, remember, some of them made it down to Argentina after World War II, the dictatorship equated Judaism with socialism and rounded up and killed huge numbers of political opponents, even turning football stadiums into makeshift death camps. Sound familiar, Israel? Many of those involved were the sons of German Nazis who escaped to Argentina after the end of the Second World War. Wow, I just said that. Israel actively helped the dictatorship with their slaughter, selling them sophisticated military hardware and upping their levels of military assistance, even as attacks on the country's Jewish community increased. Why? Because then they can claim that Jews are being persecuted in Argentina, and guess where the safe haven for you to go is, Jews? It's disgusting. It's why they supported the Stern Gang and all the attacks, the Irgun terrorism across the Arab world throughout the 1930s. Now we get to a love-hate relationship. While Israel is supporting Argentina, the goodwill is certainly not reciprocated, no matter Milei's attempts. A recent Pew poll found that the majority of Argentinians hold a negative view of Israel, including 34% who have highly unfavorable opinions of the country, 7 times that who reportedly hold very positive views of Israel, which is 5%. I would wonder what the Jewish population of Argentina is. I would guess it's more than 5%, because there are going to be anti-Zionist Jews in every country, especially after what Israel has claimed to do in the name of Jews worldwide. Like me. In this respect, they are taking after another Argentinian footballing sensation, Diego Maradona. The star, often regarded as the greatest footballer ever, declared himself the #1 fan of the Palestinian people and stated that, "In my heart, I am Palestinian." Maradona consistently condemned the actions of the United States and Israel and aligned himself with revolutionary causes around the world. In contrast, Messi has constantly shied away from political issues, kind of like LeBron James. But as discussed here, he's made several decisions, embracing Netanyahu, visiting Jerusalem, becoming the face of an Israeli tech firm staffed by spies, and surrounding himself with Israeli spooks as bodyguards that should lead many to question his supposed neutrality. Argentina played England last Wednesday for a place in the World Cup final. While the result ended up being positive for them, it was no mystery that Israel and Netanyahu would be cheering for Argentina and for Leo Messi. Now, Messi has, again, not come out in support of Netanyahu since October 7th, 2023. So a lot of this stuff in trying to smear him in some way and attach him to things, it's looking at the whole body of work. It's the fact that he still continues to be the spokesperson for this Israeli Orcam. And again, Orcam is not just a device to help blind people, although they would like you to believe that that's all they're doing. All right. Great article by Indie Media Award honoree Alan McLeod from Indie Media Award honoree Mint Press News. Subscribe to their publication via email for free. Support with a monthly contribution or annually. Please support independent media like this. It's really important. Next, I couldn't believe this one when I read it. I said, this is not too far removed from Dr. Evil level kind of stuff. Can we get frickin' sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their frickin' heads? From the only democracy in the Middle East. The most moral army. I couldn't believe this headline. Crocodile-filled moats could surround Israeli prisons holding Palestinians? And then to read that this wasn't some cooked up nonsense story, but this is a real fucking thing. From AA, the Turkish agency, crocodile-filled moats could surround Israeli prisons holding Palestinians. Legal hurdle cleared towards Security Minister Ben-Gvir's controversial proposal to have crocodiles serve as de facto guards at prisons holding Palestinians. This one is so upsetting. I mean, can you imagine? Israel has taken a legal step toward implementing a controversial proposal by extremist National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to surround prisons holding Palestinian detainees with crocodile-filled moats, Hebrew media reports said Thursday. And very few English-speaking media, by the way. Israel's Channel 7 said Environmental Protection Minister, idiot Silman, signed an order reclassifying crocodiles as managed wild animals, allowing government bodies, including the Israel Prison Service, to keep them in their facilities under specified conditions. What those conditions are, I have no idea, but the move now removes a key legal obstacle that had stymied the plan, as crocodiles were previously classified as protected wild animals that can only be kept in licensed zoos. Channel 13 said the legal change followed objections by the Israel Nature and Parks Authority to the proposed project, what a surprise, dubbed the Crocodile Prison by Hebrew media. Again, if you want to know about all the monstrous shit that Israel's up to, just watch their own media. Read their own newspapers and websites translated. They tell you everything. Ben-Gvir unveiled the proposal about 6 months ago. He called for a high-security prison encircled by crocodile-filled waterways, in the desert, by the way, to deter escape attempts by Palestinian detainees. According to Channel 7, the Israel Prison Service has already begun examining the project's feasibility, including visits to zoos to study crocodile handling and care requirements. They're not just examining the feasibility, they're already in the process of executing and making it happen. The broadcaster said that officials believe crocodile-filled moats could reduce guarding costs while strengthening prison security. Sure. A, how are you going to keep them in the moats? B, how many are they going to be? And how are you going to keep them fed? And don't say you're going to do you don't have enough prisoners, quote unquote, to keep them fed. Not long term. It added that a young crocodile, because how much matters, right? When we're talking about murdering Palestinians by having them eaten by crocodiles. A young croc costs around $8,000, while an adult can cost up to $20,000. There was no immediate comment from the prison service on the reported plan or where it could be implemented. There's already a prison that they have in mind. And just a reminder that around 9,500 Palestinians are currently held in Israeli prisons, at least, including women and children, some without charge, under conditions that Palestinian and Israeli rights groups say involve starvation, torture, rape, and medical neglect, leading to the deaths of dozens of detainees, including doctors. God damn, man. Now, Brett Wilkins over at Common Dreams also published an article about this that had a little bit more data, but I didn't think that it was necessary. I also didn't like some of the sources that he cited, and so I skipped that. But if you want to check out commondreams.org and look for the Brett Wilkins site about this, there's a little bit more detail. But just the fact that they're even considering this. Again, international community, silent. Oh. Now, they claim that this was inspired by Alligator Alcatraz, even though that's not true. They just, that was a nickname. There were not actual moats with alligators surrounding anything there. But allegedly, Ben-Gvir liked the name and decided he thought it was a good idea. Fuck Israel for that shit. Now, this is an audible call that I made yesterday. This was not originally part of the lineup that I had planned, but I'm gonna play this video from Mo Hamza, who's had multiple Instagram accounts taken down. This one's about 6 weeks old. We'll see how long this one lasts. But I'm gonna blow this up here. I can't blow this up.
From school. And okay, I am literally right now picking my children up from school. And all day, all I have been seeing is child after child after child after child after child after child in one day. Child after child. What is happening? And in the middle of all these posts are all these World Cup breakdowns and World Cup commentary. Fuck the World Cup, dude. It's over. Fuck it all. What is going on? Every single player that was playing in the World Cup, inclusive of Ronaldo, Messi, Mo Salah, every fucking player, every coach, every single official, and all of FIFA need to get up off their fucking high horses and condemn this shit and publicly talk about it. Children, every single other minute I'm seeing a child either dead or injured or maimed. What is going on, man? These children look almost identical to my son and daughter. Every single one of these children I see my children's eyes. What the fuck is going on? I can't be the only parent in this world that's losing his fucking mind, man. What is happening? No. Like, you are parents, you celebrity pieces of shit. You are parents. You're gonna watch this happen and go and sing on your stages and go on your platforms all fucking day, then say nothing? Fuck all you guys, man. You guys are disgusting. Disgusting human beings. You don't have a right to be parents ever. You fucking selfish pieces of shit. Fuck all of you.
Is that clear enough? Zero lies detected. Yes, go start. Fuck Israel all day, every day. And finally, remember that a lot of what's happening around the world, including in Iran, was because Israel wanted it to happen. And everybody went along. So our friends over at antiwar.com, this is Indie Media Award honoree Kyle Anzalone, publishing for, again, Indie Media Award honoree, antiwar.com. Go check out indiemediaawards.substack.com for the full list of all the honorees. And this was, again, 4 days ago. U.S. strikes civilian infrastructure in Iran. This was Friday. Iran reports multiple civilians were killed and injured by the U.S. attack. Why? Why are we putting them at risk and risking their civilians and infrastructure? Why are we putting our own soldiers at risk and risking the stability of the entire world? President Poopy Pants Donald Trump ordered strikes against civilian infrastructure in Iran, including bridges, roads, railways, and energy sites. Oh yeah, another word for that, war crimes. Overnight Thursday, the U.S. bombed multiple bridges, a railway, a maritime watchtower, and energy sites. The U.S. strikes killed at least 8 Iranians. For months, President Poopy Pants Trump has threatened to bomb civilian sites in Iran if Tehran did not comply with his demands. Iran has refused to make concessions to Washington and is attempting to end the conflict on its terms. according to Richard Medhurst, you know, the United States is blockading both ends of the Strait of Hormuz. So therefore, the United States is controlling global energy worldwide and movement. And if they can't control it, they'll just pirate the ship. Well, Tehran thinks it's winning. You know, I don't know. Iran responded to the attacks by bombing the U.S. bases in Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait and Jordan. Tehran also targeted energy sites in Bahrain and a desalination plant in Kuwait. And then the IRGC claims to have taken out multiple U.S. radar systems and other military equipment. All right, to which there was retaliation, and now U.S. soldiers have been killed. Now here, at this point, U.S. CENTCOM claimed that no U.S. troops were killed by the Iranian strikes. That has since changed since Friday. The ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, established by the MOU, collapsed last week when the Iranian forces fired on vessels attempting to transit the Strait of Hormuz in response to the U.S. violations of the MOU. So wait a minute. It didn't collapse when Iran fired. It collapsed when the U.S. repeatedly violated it, Kyle. Come on. The U.S. responded by bombing Iran. Iran retaliated with strikes on American bases in the region. The strikes have escalated over the past week. Trump appears to be preparing for a more intense bombing campaign in Iran. We've been seeing that over the last few days. On Friday, Axios reported speaking with 3 U.S. and Israeli officials who explained that the U.S. was moving additional refueling aircraft to Israel. The U.S. currently has about 60 refueling aircraft in Israel, plans to deploy several dozen more. That's going to double their capabilities. Additionally, the sources said the president is considering a massive offensive against Iran. I think we might even be closer to that than we were on Friday. So fuck Israel for all of that. Again, what is the U.S. gaining out of all of these attacks on Iran? Why are we doing this? Why is this in our national security interests? Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. This is all insane. And it's being done to continue endless war to profit the defense contractors, the AI tech bros, and to keep things in limbo because certain people benefit from chaos. So again, fuck Israel for all those things. Now I have to get to before we do that, I'm gonna talk about we're gonna finish the Whitney Webb article about Polymarket and its origins and how they lied about how it actually came to be and how Peter Thiel and DARPA and CIA and all kinds of shadowy figures are involved. And they don't want you to know that because they've now tried to scrub history so that when people do look up how was Polymarket formed, it appears to have been created in a garage by a 20-year-old kid. But as it turns out, we've learned that 20-year-old kid, his name is Shane Complin. He, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Before we do, support independent media because we need it more than ever. Yeah, so the ways to do that there. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. co-v.com/Indie News Network. Over at paypal.me/Indie News Network. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. You've got IndieNewsNow.com. It's the name of the show. It's also the website where a lot of these articles that I'm reading tonight, the BetBeat article, the Messi article, the article, I think there's an article about crocodiles, and definitely the anti-war article, were all linked at IndieNewsNow.com. You could also tip the network and leave or pick up some merch over there as well. And then over on Substack, you can go to IndieMediaToday.com. We're streaming live there. All the clips from this show get emailed out as individual email segments. And then we share the weekly update from the network. And occasionally I write an article, an original thing. Haven't done that in a little bit, but I'm noodling on a few things right now. And then INN newsletter. You know, we're a member of Indie News Network, a founding member. Can't get my words out tonight. And so we have a newsletter where I publish a weekly update every Friday at 5:45 Eastern, and that will summarize everything that's gone on across the network on all platforms. You know, we co-stream AM Wake Up to Twitter and Twitch and Kick, and The Dissident publishes to his Substack, and I've now started including Robbie Yeager's articles when he publishes them in the weekly update as well. And all the INN news segments that Reef and Colin cut and publish. All of Angel Rivera's streams, for whether that's Pro Wrestling Talk or Angel and Friends. All of that. In American Tradition with Jesse Jett. You can find them all there. Okay. Before we start, let's see. Denver Attaway. Okay, what's your hypothesis? The U.S. is playing out zero-sums strategy for curtailing oil sources and thinks that Russia plus China plus India will be oil poor and poorer? Maybe? Okay, it depletes on a given timeline compared to us, plus tar sands, plus Venezuela and other trade partners, except that the tar sands, we're refining it for export, not for U.S. consumption. And I read that some of the equipment, like Russian stuff, can't handle Chinese stuff, and there's all different dynamics to this. But I don't know. All right. So we're going to get to the Whitney Webb story from Unlimited Hangout. And again, the last 2 weeks, I've been reading this article about Polymarket. Okay, the secret history of Polymarket, the one they don't want you to know. So last week, I stopped at a section where we were talking about this gentleman by the name of Joe Krug. All right. And Joe Krug had been the CEO of a company called Augur. All right. Augur was Peter Thiel's first attempt at a Polymarket type of prediction market that failed. But while he was still at Augur, Joey Krug, and I'm going to continue here, received an email from Polymarket CEO to be Shane Copland describing ideas to improve Augur, and sent further repeated investment pitches for Pantera's then CIO to consider. Krug explained that prediction markets are one of the hardest types of startups to build, and that while there have been dozens, none of them hit escape velocity. As noted earlier in this piece, the Augur co-founder told Copland that if he could create a prediction market that reached a target volume of $5 million a week, then he would invest. All right. So that's Joey Krug. All right. That was when he was a partner at Founders Fund, co-founder at Eco, and co-founder at Augur. He's a Silicon Valley tech bro, deeply connected to Peter Thiel. During and after his time at Augur, Krug participated in many advisory roles within the cryptocurrency industry, notably including a 2019 appointment to run the advisory board of a novel dollar stablecoin project called Ampleforth, or AMP. Ampleforth was created to develop a dollar stablecoin that fluctuates its supply based on external information, like the CPI, in order to stabilize purchasing power. Okay. How do you fluctuate your supply? So you literally take some out of circulation? This project brought Krug's expertise in cryptocurrency-based prediction markets alongside giants of the retail service data industry, including former employees of Google and Uber and Facebook, all companies that have notably pioneered data-driven predictions as part of their commercial products. For example, one Uber former employee who joined Ampleforth worked on Uber Places, which necessitated autocomplete search, destination prediction, and current location prediction, and became the primary engineering point during a multi-year maps contract between Google and Uber. I don't know if any of you have used the Uber app, but as you start typing an address, it will automatically go to fill it in for you based upon all different factors. mostly based on where you are and the number of potential results that could be shown and its distance from where you are. Uber was notorious for hiring former intelligence officers, including former CIA, FBI, and NSA employees, and it reportedly amassed a high-functioning corporate espionage force. Its founder, Travis Kalanick, was a fellow peer-to-peer data pioneer, having developed a program similar to Napster called Scour before he led a hostile, technology-driven takeover of the world's taxi industry. As noted earlier, Kalanick was the other tech billionaire that Kaplan closely studied, in addition to Mark Zuckerberg, and was the other figure alongside the Facebook founder that Kaplan has acknowledged he sought to emulate. Kalanick and his company's utter dismissal of the current legislative environment while building the disruptive ride-sharing business would go on to greatly influence Kaplan's indifference to the law, i.e. his act first, apologize later model, while Polymarket was breaking ground during and before the 2024 election cycle. The similarities between Napster, Facebook, Uber, and Polymarket include their legal disruption as a service business models and their formative operations within a regulatory gray area, if not simply illegal. Other areas of overlap will be discussed below and in part 2, which hasn't been published yet, by the way. Alongside Krug on AMP's board sat members of the Hoover Institute, we know who they are, an eventual technical project manager of Facebook's stablecoin project Libra, which was a failure, and an early influential Facebook employee, Sam Lessin. Lessin was a former classmate of Zuckerberg's at Harvard, who sold his company to Facebook and formally joined the company in 2010. Lessin also played a crucial role during the company's founding as his father, Wall Street banker Robert Lessin, quote, took Zuckerberg around New York to meet with venture capitalists and executives in the finance and media industries, unquote, after their spring semester in 2004. That also, by the way, is showcased in the movie The Social Network, when Zuckerberg is literally going to different VCs. Aaron Sorkin actually plays one of the people that he goes and visits, and Justin Timberlake, who's playing Sean Parker, sets up an argument or a thing with this guy and screws with him, and the guy ends up throwing him out of his office and promising to never do business with him. And then right afterwards, they got the Peter Thiel investment, allegedly, the way that timeline worked. Krug, having joined Thiel's Founders Fund in April of 2023 to formally partner with both Thiel and Sean Parker to help shape the next decade of Founders Fund crypto strategy, promptly led a $45 million investment round in Polymarket. The investment was announced in 2024, shortly after Kaplan met his fabled $5 million a week trading volume mark. In a December 2025 interview, Krug described Augur as failing while Polymarket has succeeded, mainly because the timing was just wrong and we were way too early. I think a few other things have happened. Yeah, the timing because of who was president and the regulatory environment. Krug furthered that hopefully we inspired some people to build in the space, and maybe Augur is Napster and Polymarket is Spotify. They would very much like it to be that. Now we get to the Napsterization of everything. So what that means is we're going to create a model that will break the industry existing, one that is designed to fail, but one where a phoenix can arise in its ashes under a similar model commercially and succeed, and gouge everyone and make billions to trillions of dollars. The story has been carefully crafted over the past few years. That a young college dropout named Shane Kaplan, after being inspired by Austrian economists and Robin Hansen, founded Polymarket in mid-2020 completely alone and then built his company in his bathroom. Yeah, while he was sitting and taking a shit, he had his laptop on his lap, right? As detailed extensively in this article, there is plenty of background information and key data points that have been clearly left out of this story in order for this particular narrative of Shane Copland's and Polymarket's origins to take hold. This narrative bears many similarities to the stories that have been woven regarding the origins of major big tech firms, whose founders Copland explicitly hoped to emulate. In many of those cases, these founders are said to have built their companies in their garage or something similarly humble, only for it to trickle out years later that their company's success stories were only made possible by funding provided by either U.S. intelligence or similarly shady organizations and groups. In the case of Copland, despite efforts made to obfuscate his past, he was clearly immersed in networks within the cryptocurrency agency with ties to Israel and Israeli intelligence well before he founded Polymarket. During this time, he talked about the Napsterization of finance, only to have the venture capital firm of Napsters, Sean Parker, and crypto prediction market pioneer Joey Krug be among the first backers of Polymarket. Joey Krug claims that Polymarket was successful, again where others were not, because of its preferable user interface. In reality, it was Copland's connections to the networks he developed while running Token Union, combined with his careful study and emulation of Sean Parker of Napster, Travis Kalanick of Uber, and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, that made Copland and his company a success. Also, his fealty to one Peter Thiel. If there's a pattern emerging from this disruption nexus of prediction market makers, peer-to-peer data pioneers, and social network founders, perhaps it's the brazen disinterest in upholding the law during their respective incubation and early growth periods. Actually, it's the opposite. They flouted the law in every case. Due to the proximity of these businesses to the ideas that stem from the likes of DARPA and the U.S. intelligence community, it's arguable that these companies were silently given a free pass to build where others could not, and quickly gained an insurmountable market share from being the first movers in an otherwise illegal market. First to build almost always wins. But regardless of a hypothetical state-sponsored get-out-of-jail-free card, these generations of Silicon Valley's best and brightest quite literally changed the limits of their industry by changing the rules of their regulators. Parker's Napster was blatantly illegal, as was Kalanick's Uber, and yet both models survived in their own way. Uber stopped paying fines on behalf of drivers and started lobbying local, state, and federal government, while the Napster founder funded and advised Spotify into becoming the largest music streaming service in the world. A willingness to break the rules while building a company combined with teaming up with the right people, invariably tied to the military or intelligence or both, is the recipe that Copland studied and then emulated in building Polymarket. As both Krug and Copland have alluded to, Polymarket's path seems closer to the Napster into Spotify model, in which Augur built the infrastructure and demonstrated the market demand for the product that Polymarket and Kalshi are now delivering. The similarities between the companies of this nexus are immense. Young founders were raided by the FBI. The companies had employees who boasted working, likely collaborating, with the intelligence community. They started as companies that potentially offered illegal services. They were advised and funded by the Thiel, Conway, and Pincus network at a young age. They rode waves of political favors and regulatory tide shifts toward eventual legitimacy. And finally, many of them seem to be awfully similar to the same family of controversial projects once housed at DARPA. Also, all of them are now billionaires. Kalanick, Koplan, Zuckerberg, Parker, Thiel, Krug, I'm guessing. Another argument to be made is that the government, whether demonstrated by actions of various legislative agencies, court systems, and law enforcement, was only feigning resistance to these founders and companies. Under the cover of fines, raids, and court summons, these intelligence and military-backed technology companies were painted as outsiders fighting against the legacy systems, while in actuality pursuing the very interests of the Pentagon and the intelligence community. Indeed, as this article makes clear, the military and intelligence community have long been fans of prediction markets, whether PAM or Augur or now Polymarket. Look at what it did in the Kentucky House race, where you watch the Polymarket odds swing, and within the last week, all of a sudden, money started flowing towards Gallerin because somebody clearly knew that he was going to win, and they profited a ton that week. Now I see the same thing happening with Haley Stevens versus Abdul El-Sayed in the Michigan primary. With Polymarket's odds now capable of moving the stock market, manipulating the media, and even influencing elections, the real architects of the explosion in prediction markets have a new tool that allows them not only unprecedented predictive power, but also unprecedented abilities to insider trade while they seed select narratives and alter our digital reality. As will be explored in part 2, the fact that both Joey Krug and Shane Koplan were inspired specifically by Robin Hansen's work on Futarchy, which proposes using prediction markets as a system of public governance, AI governance is coming, is highly significant. They're going to basically use Polymarket as the model that you're going to be able to vote on laws, that you're going to be able to vote on ballot initiatives potentially. That's their system. And of course, they control all the switches. Perhaps even more significant is the fact that Futarchy is already taking hold in significant ways under the current administration. A turn of events that's particularly jarring, considering that the president's son is both invested in and advising Polymarket and advising Kalshi and invested in it through 1789 Capital. As broached here, but explored in greater detail in the next part of this investigation, which of course I'm going to read on this show, Polymarket's success heralds a new era for both finance and for governance, one where the House always wins. Trump likes that phrase, even though he's invested in multiple casinos that have gone bankrupt. Man, what a mess. What a nightmare that you have all of these players all working together to manipulate global markets and profit from world events. Man, what a mess. So that was, again, unlimitedhangout.com, Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin. The Secret History of Polymarket, Part 1. Become a paid subscriber over there if you can. It's $5 a month. I've been a paid subscriber for years. Whitney and Mark actually just released and published their very first podcast together on the relaunched Unlimited Hangout YouTube channel. So I encourage everyone also to go and watch that podcast where they talk about Polymarket and predictive markets. And I think it's about a 25-minute podcast is the first episode. And if you're a paid subscriber, you'll get early access to episodes of the new podcast. So, what does everyone think about Polymarket? OMB, I see OMB here. Everybody pretty quiet during that segment. I don't know what's going on. But okay. So Denver Attaway makes me wonder if other people might have come to such work outside of the controlled players and narrative. Note the countless crypto entrepreneurs and exchange founders murdered, often in gruesome ways. Yeah, agree. Okay. And yeah, don't be evil. Now it's just be evil once you have total dominance. That's what Google's doing. Absolutely. Yep. So that was the final portion of part one. And Polymarket is making a big splash. It's straight gambling for some. And for those who have insider knowledge, it's a lot more than gambling. It's a way to pump and increase your net worth, you know, with insider trading that is very hard to track and regulate. Just how, and you know, when you're getting that information, how it's being used, when the trades are being made, etc. Okay, so support independent media because we need it more than ever. You know the ways to do it. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, code-v.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network as friends and family. Monthly, you can subscribe at patreon.com/Indie News Network. You can sub monthly or annually at Indie Media Today, that's my Substack, or at INN's newsletter, that's INNnewsletter.com, that's their Substack for the network. Okay, or you can leave a tip over at IndieNewsNow.com under the Keep the Media Free section. That is a 24/7 fire hose of streaming news from over 100 different outlets, including antiwar.com and Mint Press News. And a lot of the articles, including the Unlimited Hangout article that I just read, was actually linked there when it first published. Okay. Denver, I think Polymarket is engineering reality. In some ways, they might be, and they're backing their way into engineering it. And they're also going to use it to possibly change history and rewrite history, I feel like. So I've got one other segment, and then we can get to the GoFundMes. And that would be our lightning round. We're going to take 4 different articles. I'm just going to whip through them real quick. Not going to read the whole thing. But I do think these are important articles that should be looked at, and I'll link them in the Substack after the show is over. So first one, I'm talking about Sean Fain and a very long article written by Mike Elk over at Payday Report, where there's now a grand jury being impaneled or assembled to investigate some potential wrongdoing over there. Arturo Dominguez over at Decolonized Journalism wrote an article about how ICE had killed 2 in under a week. Okay, these guys. And then we're talking about this guy who resigned from Google, okay, over that Pentagon AI deal, Pentagon. And then we're going to get into a solution at the end of this, how to beat big tech with a site called Privacy Guides. So how are we starting? This is the biggest news story that you haven't heard yet. This is a story that goes back 2 to 3 years. Mike was right. We covered Mike Elk's reporting on the smearing of the Federal Monitor, okay, for Sean Fain, or on behalf of Sean Fain, as a Zionist targeting the UAW by Jonah Furman and Chris Brooks, who were working quietly with Ryan Grimm and Dropsite News to publish these smear pieces and help Dropsite launch their new site 2 years ago. Okay, so what happened is that now we've got some receipts. Leaked UAW transcripts and audio discredit Sean Fain's attack on the UAW Federal Monitor, Neil Barofsky, proving that he said, "I'm not letting my biases get involved here. You were served something from the ADL. I was giving you advice as a lawyer and as your Federal Monitor on how I would respond to this if I were one of your counsel." All right. On Sunday, Bloomberg broke the story that a federal grand jury had been impaneled at the request of the Trump admin to look into allegations of financial misconduct and self-enrichment by Sean Fain. Again, this was all accused 2 years ago by Payday Report. He's also expected to face possible federal indictments over retaliating against union leaders Margaret Mock and Rich Boyer. Again, we've been talking about that, who reported financial misconduct and abuses of power within the union. In response to the news of the grand jury, Fain lashed out at the federal monitor again, who was appointed by a former union side labor lawyer and Clinton appointed judge, David Lawson. That was a Democrat. He reports directly to Lawson, not Trump, whose admin impaneled the jury. Read this whole article. And there's like 5 articles that he spun out of this. One about how proving that Ryan Grimm did actually smear the federal monitor on behalf of these guys and claimed that his anonymous source never disclosed that that his anonymous source allegedly was married to one of the editors for Drop Site News, and that was where they were getting the info from. All right. So if you remember, again, this was 2 years ago on How Did We Miss That? Reef and I did a segment that was an hour and a half long. I broke it into multiple components. All right. That they endorsed Kamala Harris with zero, that they got zero in return for. Crazy. August 2024. It was right after Harris had been anointed as the replacement candidate and Biden had stepped down. All right. So this will also be linked and included. Yeah, exactly, Seven Sword. This corruption playbook is how Zio-Satanist DC convinces Americans not to unionize. Well, yes, but I'm not a big fan of the UAW in general because they're literally trying to pit employees of rival companies and claim that they're all on the same side and fighting for the same thing, which they're not. So I'm much more a fan of a local union for a specific company coming together to fight their own bosses and establish what their own agenda for their company and their needs are, and not rely on a larger outsourced third-party union like SEIU or UAW or the Teamsters or the restaurant workers and delivery persons, RWDU, okay? Go read Mike at Payday Report. He also is independent. Of course, all these people are to support their independent journalism. They really need it. All right. Arturo Dominguez, friend of the show, friend of the network, from Decolonized Journalism, also published a really important article that everyone really should go and listen to or read, talking about how ICE killed 2 more people in under a week. And I haven't talked about ICE as much lately, but they haven't stopped. If anything, they've ramped up even further. But it's just that there's been so many other things to cover that I can't get to all of it. But as he mentions here, just 6 days after ICE killed Lorenzo Salgado Araujo in Houston, who was not a target for deportation, agents killed another man in Maine. The second man killed was Joan Sebastian Guerrero, a 26-year-old father from Colombia. Like Araujo, Guerrero was not the target of the enforcement action. Instead, ICE agents were reportedly surveilling the home, waiting for someone else, according to the DHS via social media. Most notable in their statement is the departure from the narrative that the agent claiming to have feared for their life, a widely used allegation that proved untrue in previous cases. The statement suggests that the agents were surveilling the house as Guerrero loaded his daughter into his car and began traveling before they attempted to take him into custody, leading to a traffic stop where they alleged that he tried to flee and ended with his 3-year-old daughter witnessing him shot in the face and killed. And then they took him out of the car in handcuffs and threw him on the ground face first. Disgusting. So read the rest of this article from Arturo. It's becoming too much, honestly, for me on this one. All right. The other one is this person who resigned from Google DeepMind. And I'm going to read this part of the thread. And then he wrote a super long article that he attached to it. Right. Maine's governor said, yeah, crickets, exactly. All right. But he says, this guy, Alex Turner at Turntrout, I resigned from Google DeepMind because it broke its founding promise by selling AI to the military without restrictions against killer robots or mass spying. For months, I worked to stop this, but watched powerful ethicists and institutions choose silence. Here's what happened. All right, so here, to skip the thread and read the full account, don't do that. My efforts began when DHS agents killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I was disturbed to learn that Google sells cloud services to the DHS supply chain. My efforts soon expanded to military AI. The Pentagon threatened Anthropic with economic destruction unless they handed over their AI with no restrictions. I was worried that Google would cave to similar threats. What hurt most was watching AI ethics leaders do nothing. When the Pentagon threatened Anthropic, I was at a conference held by the International Association for Safe and Ethical AI. I lobbied that organization's leaders to act. On stage, leadership announced a member vote on making a statement supporting Anthropic. Unanimous show of hands supported it. But the vote vanished. They went silent, ignoring 2 months of opportunities to sway Google. Inside Google, Alex organized a petition to Chief Scientist Jeff Dean, asking him to fight. Over 250 Google DeepMind employees signed. I also asked Jeff to sign an amicus brief backing Anthropic. He did, which was awesome. Jeff was outspoken against government abuse of AI. I thought that if Jeff told Google he'd leave on an unethical deal, he could force ethics restrictions or stop the deal. He's that important. To prepare, I wrote a principled alternative for Google. 25 pages of contract language and oversight mechanisms, praised by a leading military law expert. I proposed that Jeff head the potential review body, but he didn't champion the proposal. In the end, I don't think he used his leverage. I think he could have stopped the deal, but he didn't. As a last attempt, I directly messaged Google's DeepMind's CEO, Demi Hassabis. He told me to send my proposal to 2 senior policy staff. They let the proposal wilt unattended until Google signed the deal. In 2018, Demis, Jeff, and DeepMind itself pledged to neither participate in nor support the development or use of lethal autonomous weapons. Again, getting back to the BetBeat article, that every single one of these pledges has a shelf life, and it depends upon the number of zeros on the contract. Google signed, yet these pledges remain. I see 3 honest paths: explain, renounce the pledge, or quit. Silence is not one of them. Here's a path Demis has chosen: deny anything has changed. He claims that nothing's changed about our principles, yet he co-authored the post removing the weapons prohibition from Google's AI principles. Both cannot be true. Many hope that when things get bad enough, someone powerful will say no. I tested that for months. Anthropic defended its red lines, but most did not. Pledges of conscience often vaporize on contact with power. Also, a great line. Again, this is the article he wrote, and it is much more detailed than the one that than the piece I just read, with all of his receipts and all of his rationale and everything footnoted and labeled for you with backlinks. So go check that out if you get a chance. Again, this is his own site, turntrout.com. Alex Turner. Now, finally, while we have done this entire show and it's been mostly doom and gloom, I do have something somewhat positive to add here. And I have not investigated deep enough to check out the full veracity of whether everything this person claims is absolutely true. All right, but I'd like to believe it. A guy named Jonah accidentally built the most useful website on the internet. It's called Privacy Guides. This is the website Google would rather you not find, Meta actively lobbies against, data brokers have tried to discredit for years, and the entire advertising industry treats as a direct threat to their business model. You have my attention, sir. It's been online since 2019. It takes no affiliate money. It runs no ads. Journalists cite it. Security researchers trust it. Here's how it works. Privacy Guides is a curated recommendation list. The site itself sells nothing. It just tells you which private tool actually replaces every surveillance product in your life, tested by security researchers and updated every month, organized into 40+ categories with the exact reason to pick that each pick was chosen. Browsers that block trackers and ads by default. Email providers that can't read your messages. Can you hear me, Gmail? Search engines that do not build a profile on you. Password managers that you can self-host. VPNs that accept cache and Monero and log nothing. Messengers with true end-to-end encryption, signal tier or better. Photo apps that don't scan your camera roll. Can you hear me, Apple? Health apps that don't sell your data to insurance companies. Can you hear me, Google? A custom Android OS called Graphene OS that strips Google out of your phone entirely and has been endorsed by one Richard Medhurst. The site is run by a nonprofit called Magic Grants. Every recommendation goes through a public forum review, a GitHub pull request, and criteria published on the site so anyone can audit why a tool was chosen. No company can pay to be listed. No affiliate link exists on the entire domain. Google can't shut this down. Meta can't shut this down. Amazon can't shut this down. The entire $600 billion surveillance advertising industry is built on the assumption that you would never spend one afternoon on this site. And here's what the site looks like. Let's blow it up. So here are the different recommendations by different categories. So if I look at desktop browsers, okay, what it recommends, okay, against the threat of surveillance capitalism, we recommend Molvad browser, all right, out of the box. Firefox for casual browsers looking for a good alternative to Chrome, and Brave if you need Chromium browser capability. If you need to browse the internet anonymously, you should use Tor instead. We make some configuration recommendations on this page, but all browsers other than Tor browser will be traceable by somebody in some manner or other. Very interesting stuff. All right. Learn about cloud storage and the different types of threats against them. Proton Drive, of which I am a subscriber. And there is an affiliate link, by the way, I believe, at the very bottom of the description of this live stream to a Proton link. All right, then there's Tresorit. And I advocate for any one of these. PeerGhost is a decentralized protocol and open source platform for storage, social media, and applications. Provides secure and private space where users can store, share, view, and edit their photos, videos, and documents. PeerGhost secures your files with quantum-resistant end-to-end encryption. That's what that E2EE means. And ensures that all data about your files remains private. It's also self-hostable, which is nice. Okay, so again, 40 different categories, and every one of them looking at what is the best for privacy. I'm going to blow Golden Monarch's mind right now and look at the cryptocurrency one. which is basically Monero. And other than that, they're claiming that every other crypto is vulnerable. All right. Monero uses a blockchain with privacy-enhancing technologies that obfuscate transactions to achieve anonymity. Every Monero transaction hides the transaction amount, sending and receiving addresses, and source of funds without any hoops to jump through, making it an ideal choice for crypto novices. Assuming that you trust cryptocurrency at all, which both Golden Monarch and I do not. But again, for every category of software or hardware you can think of, they have recommendations. And I would spend time on this site if I were all of you, to learn about how you can better secure your data and protect yourself from spyware. Finally, I mentioned the other day that the Indie News shop is open for orders. And if you watch the pre-show thumbnail slideshow, I believe these images are in there. And all of these are available at the Indie News shop. If you go to IndieNewsNow.com, click on the merch link, you can get to you can purchase any one of those through the shop. Okay. And we've got t-shirts, we've got hoodies, we've got tank tops, we've got stickers. So check all of those out. Go to IndieNewsNow.com and click on the merch link, and then you can search by category. And you can also pick up Shanda Masta stuff as well. You know, the fuck cancer stuff. So, that's it for the lightning round. Cool. Good stuff. We're coming up upon our 2-hour mark, which is perfect. We want to get quickly to the GoFundMes, and then we'll let everyone get out of here for the evening. All right, before we do that, support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that, you know, are there on that wall, and everyone that has already done so is already there. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Or monthly at Patreon.com/Indie News Network. Like I just mentioned, the website, IndieNewsNow.com. There is a section to keep the media free and tip with a Stripe link. Or you can subscribe monthly or annually over at the Substacks. That's mine at IndieMediaToday.com. Or for INNs at INNNewsletter.com. Okay. Yeah, there's a joke about, okay, Kieran Pine, I see you, brother. How are you? Driving me Messi. I see you out there. Denver, we're paying for the tech. Shoulder the investment so we can give it away. Scenario or not, that's what's happening, and we enable it. Absolutely. What is this? Isn't graphene just Linux for phone OS? Maybe, but it's also incredibly highly secure. And, you know, allegedly, according to Richard, it was the one operating system that the London Police Department could not access. I don't know if that was true or not. That's what he claims. All right. Finally, let's get to our friends and their GoFundMes. We have been talking about our friend Words of Will. His wife, Elizabeth, was diagnosed in May with breast cancer. She's now gone through her first round of chemotherapy. I believe there will be radiation. There may be surgery. He gave me an update today. It wasn't great about a financial thing that happened. He thought that they were going to get some kind of mortgage relief, but because of some grant that they had gotten because of her cancer, it didn't cover a payment that was required in order to be eligible for the grant, and it eliminated their eligibility, which is just a nightmare. And he said, like, it feels like this is like the world working against me. And I know it's not, but it certainly feels like it. And we love you, and we feel for you, and we're here for you. The GoFundMe is up to how much? Last week it was $41.10 or so. Okay. So that's Will and Elizabeth and her boys. $41.15. It's still sitting there. So nothing's come into the GoFundMe in the last 2 weeks. I know that he's starting a class for some kind of a service role in August. And right now they're just trying to get by on the kindness of strangers, friends and family, and running into debt on credit cards and everything else. Again, I can't even imagine what kind of stress that must be like going through. So if there's anything anybody can do, we contributed a couple of weeks ago as a network. I think we might have to step up again and do something to help out. Fuck cancer. It's just the worst. So that's Elizabeth Wimmer and our friend Words of Will. So support them if you're able to. Also, we've got next. Oh, did they take it down? Nope. There we go. There's Natalia's GoFundMe. Cowboy Kitty. Everybody knows our fam, Cowboy Kitty, who's been in the chat. Anthony Malecki. Anthony's sister-in-law, more than a year ago now, was taken by ICE and has been held in an ICE facility. Our friend Descent in Bloom wrote an article detailing the kind of corruption that happens in Ohio and used Natalia's case to showcase just how they're doing this to not just Natalia, but hundreds or thousands of people, not just in Ohio, but around the country. And she needs our help. She was granted asylum, but yet ICE didn't care, and some immigration judge has ordered her to be deported. She's sitting in that facility pending appeal, and they're basically trying to wait her out and make her life so miserable that she decides to self-deport. But she came here because she feared for her life. She was granted asylum because she feared for her life. And she's not going to leave unless they force her to. She also has a daughter here who graduated high school, and she missed that graduation in June, which is disgraceful. So if you're able to, please drop a couple of bucks to Natalia's GoFundMe. We also, again, thank you, Fred Edward, who gave us a couple of bucks to support all of these causes. And then we added to it of our own, so that we're trying to spread it out. Thirdly, we've got Justice for Aspen, and the only update that we have here so far is that there is really no news other than that things are kind of laying low and that things are quiet. We did hear from Halo earlier this week that they're most concerned about the marijuana charge of all of the federal drug trafficking and everything. But fingers crossed, they actually have a way to prove that the marijuana, she was not purchased by her. She had no knowledge of it, and it was done completely unbeknownst to her. It was purchased in Oklahoma when she wasn't there by somebody else. There's a whole story. And if you watch our one-on-one, and again, at linktr.ee/justice4Aspen, they talked with me about specifically the guy that went in Oklahoma when he came to visit. The drug trafficker went to a dispensary and made a deal with the dispensary to give them some kind of product, some kind of thing to showcase his band or something in exchange for a pouch. And that was dated and documented, and that's what they found there. It was clearly not Aspen's. All right. Yes. And yes, weed needs to be legal nationally, but certainly not in the Deep South. And what's funny is that I've actually been looking into which states in the Southeast, what's the furthest south you can go where you can smoke weed recreationally, legally, and the answer is Maryland. Everything south of Maryland, the Carolinas, to Georgia, down to Florida, it is not legal recreationally. All right. Vicky, Justice for Aspen is absolutely right. Aspen is autistic. Aspen is vegan. And she is facing decades in prison potentially, which is very scary for her mother. And we need to do all we can to potentially help her fund her defense. They've raised over $12,000. At some point, they will probably need to hire more experts, witnesses, and everything. But I don't want to ever stop talking about this case. Okay, until we have some kind of resolution or she is free. We love you, Aspen. Love you, Halo. We're here for you too. And we will continue to amplify this story as long as I have a platform. Finally, we have our friend Shanda. We all throw your sunflowers in the chat for Shanda. Shanda, 2 years ago, almost, was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. And I announced it on this show at the end of August in 2024. And we watched her and stood alongside her fight and go into remission after a year and go through chemotherapy and the worst radiation and try all kinds of homeopathic remedies. It went into remission and it came back. Then they beat it back again temporarily and it came back with a fucking vengeance. And it spread to her brain back in March, and back in April we lost her. April 3rd. And in tribute, I took the Zago Brothers illustration that he had made for her as an Indie Media Award honoree and put it on a bunch of merch with all profits to be donated to a cancer charity or to her family. So yeah, thank you to everybody for putting up the sunflowers in chat. Love you all. It still feels weird without Shanda. And much love to Oz. Again, you can get there by going to indiemediaawards.substack.com and finding Shanda's name in the list of all of the honorees. And still all of Shanda's links to all of her social media profiles that existed are still there. And again, as a reminder, Shanda was a Indie Media Award honoree for the class of 2023 for her outstanding work as an independent journalist, broadcaster, and live streamer. Just breaks my heart. The second RIP of all of the Indie Media Award honorees after John Pilcher. I love you all. I'm going to get out of here for tonight. Yeah, you got the really big one still going. Yep, and I'm actually working on designing. I designed a T-shirt with a sunflower on the back, on the front, and her illustration on the back. Joan, thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, I see everybody putting them up. There's Steve Gill, aka Go Start, and yeah, I'll be back next Tuesday with a whole new set of stories. I don't know if Whitney is planning on publishing her part 2 of the Polymarket article, but whenever that comes out, that'll be in a lineup. Otherwise, I'll be able to cover more ICE stuff or do some more stuff. But those are long reads. I'm glad we got through that article. Thank you for everybody for sticking with me through that and through everything else that we talked about tonight. The Messi story was crazy. That BetBeat article was really dystopian. And again, I just appreciate everyone for supporting me, for supporting INN, and for supporting independent media. You know what to do, fam. I love you all. Support independent media, and we'll see you next Tuesday. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Who are these people?
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry. My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?